Jeepers, man, oh man. I heard that this place was so fun. It was right compared to Chuck E. Cheese. Definitely way ahead of its time.
This is Bram from the Bram Show coming from the Snake Pit at Jeepers. Hold on for a wild ride.
Jeepers was a chain of indoor amusement parks, or FECs as some would call it, that I would argue is mostly well known in the Midwest and the Northeast. The first locations under the name Jungle Jim's Playland opened as soon as 1988. Pizza! Arcade games! Depressed employees! What's not to love? Jeepers had a mascot by the name of JJ Gorilla, which I'm assuming stands for Jungle Jim. I'm also assuming the mascot ties into their official tagline, food, fun, and a monkey.
Food, fun, and a monkey. Their motto is food, fun, and a monkey.
Jeepers might have been really popular at one point. There was a time where they even sold Pizza Hut pizza, which they probably stopped doing, but that's a total flex considering the time was like 1996. Just like Chuck E. Cheese, Jeepers had a whole cast of characters, like Trish the Rhino, and My Actual Nightmares. Unlike Chuck E. Cheese, however, Jeepers had the upper hand. They created competition by having indoor roller coaster attractions. Albeit the way it was set up, it usually made these attractions look cramped and unsafe, but these small indoor roller coasters were usually the appeal. In fact, I'd even argue that they were the main selling point.
Well, most people feel when they come to Jeepers, what they love the most about us is the fact that we have a roller coaster.
They had bumper cars, a monkey barrel thing, it spins you around. They had a banana plane thing. They're very in theme with the whole monkey gimmick. And then we have the Python Pit. I'm pretty sure this was the most popular coaster because it was the most thrilling. It definitely had the most footage of people riding it online. Quite a few locations didn't keep the Jeepers name. In fact, a lot of locations had some renaming and renovations over time. Some were now called Jambo Park or Zonkers. It's just crazy to me that some places like Zonkers kept this really confusing tagline and the big boy gorilla that came with it. So why am I suddenly so interested in Jeepers? Well, I recently took a walk through the Lakeside Mall, a shopping area in Sterling Heights, Michigan that looks practically abandoned.
The reality is, unless malls are reimagined for the future, the future doesn't look promising.
It has almost nothing going for it anymore. It practically feels like a time capsule with how outdated everything is. And one of the many closed stores throughout the mall was in fact Jeepers. Fully intact, all the signs were still up. There was still equipment and arcade games inside. It practically felt like it wasn't closed at all.
RIP. No more party packages.
I suddenly became so fascinated. I was like, I know this place. So I did the research and I ended up going down a fucking rabbit hole. Turns out I'm not unfamiliar at all with Jeepers. Apparently, according to my mom, it used to be one of the main hotspots when I was a kid. Apparently, I went to the popular Great Lakes Crossing Mall location in Auburn Hills. Whenever I hear conversations about Jeepers, that's usually the one that's brought up. And for good reason. Like, if you look at pictures of it online, the place is fucking huge. I'm pretty sure it's Legoland now, but the Auburn Hills Jeepers was held in pretty high regard. Present day, most if not all Jeepers locations are gone, at least with the Jeepers name still attached to it. There is still one in Maryland, but it's now called LOL Stations. The Jeepers name has had a huge fall from grace, especially with the amount of controversy surrounding it over the years. The first example, of course, being the infamous tragic incident that happened at the Wonderland Mall in Livonia, Michigan in the year 2003. The 43-year-old manager of the Jeepers ended up being killed by the Python Pit. And according to the CDC, the employee running the coaster at the time was unaware that the manager was on the tracks doing some inspection. It already feels dangerous to operate such intimidating equipment like a roller coaster, but the danger is definitely heightened from the fact that the roller coaster is in such a cramped space, and all the screaming kids are drowning out the sounds of a screaming manager. It's believed that the Wonderland Mall location closed because of this very incident, and as I mentioned earlier, a lot of locations have closed over the years. Like, they've been closed for a while now. But if you guys remember the Lakeside Mall location that I mentioned before, that Jeepers closed in 2020. We'll get into that. Now for this next bit, I want you guys to get familiar with the name Rose. She was the manager of Lakeside, and it may seem a bit weird at first that I'm mentioning her by name, but trust me, it's important.
The disabled Army vet was at this Jeepers at Lakeside Mall earlier this month. He was there for a child's birthday when he says he was asked to leave because other customers were uncomfortable with his Doberman service dog.
I never thought I'd be in that situation.
Army veteran Davin Dumar survived 2 tours to Iraq and 1 to Afghanistan, where he lost his leg and suffered other injuries after his troop was ambushed. But now he's fighting a battle for disabled folks with service dogs. His dog Layla never leaves his side, and that includes the day he went to Jeepers in Sterling Heights.
We were there for about an hour. No issues. You know, she didn't bark anybody. She didn't growl at anybody. She just laid on the ground.
Dumar says the owner of Jeepers told him Layla was making other customers uncomfortable and
that I would have to leave because they're a food establishment and dogs aren't allowed.
when he showed her his service dog card, he says the owner questioned his condition.
Well, why do you need her? That's more kind of personal. And even after I showed her my prosthetic, she still told me I had to leave.
We went to Jeepers and talked with the owner. She says Layla was a very well-behaved dog and did not bother other patrons.
This news report first came out in 2016, and it now has 5 million views. It still gets views and comments to this day, and a lot of them are not in Rose's favor. Whether she wanted to or not, she became the face of this whole thing.
She admitted that other customers complained, saying the dog scared them.
Now, I'm going to get into people's opinions on the matter, but before that, I do quickly want to mention something. When I first conceptualized this video, I wanted to poke fun at Rose for the whole ordeal, maybe even share some of my opinions on it as well. But then I did some further research, and after doing a quick Google search, I just looked up her name, that's all I did. I found an article that came out right at the top of the Google page, and it detailed a very heartbreaking event that happened in Rose's personal life, which might also seem weird to mention, but trust me, there's a reason for that too. When I saw this, I had an epiphany. Rose is a person, and she made a mistake. I'm not trying to defend her actions here because she did mess up, and I think that people had a good reason for reacting the way that they did. But me personally, I don't think I'm going to assume that she's a bad person because of this whole thing. I don't know her, and I don't think a lot of the people commenting know her either. I just don't think the world is so black and white. I know it still sounds like I'm defending her, but to reiterate, I'm just saying a lot of people are judging Rose's character based off of a 5-minute interview, and you could still do that if you want. I'm not going to, though. So at first glance, this feels like one of those he said, she said sort of cases. Davin claims that Rose had asked him to leave. Rose had said that she didn't ask him to leave, but it was the pushy customers who asked her to say something.
So why did the owner approach the Army vet? She claims ignorance, not realizing Layla was a service dog.
I had never seen before a vested service dog.
The owner says she never asked Dumar to leave, but she felt obligated to address the situation because of pushy customers.
I could see them watching me.
In hindsight, the owner of Jeepers says she would have never approached him and is sorry she made him feel unwelcome.
He has every right to be in this park.
Most people who watch this interview assume Rose is lying. They claim she felt no remorse until she was backed into a corner. She pleaded ignorance even though service dogs were legalized in the US in the year 1990. People also claim that if Davin didn't leave the premises because she asked him to, then this whole news story wouldn't have happened. I agree. I just don't see what Davin has to gain from lying about something like this. There was no lawsuit from what I'm aware of, and publicity only lasts you so long.
The owner of Jeepers plans to reach out to that Army vet to apologize, and she hopes others can learn from her mistake.
Because of the numbers that this story ended up getting, you can't look at reviews for Jeepers anymore without seeing at least one mention of the Army veteran and his service dog. Understandably. I've seen people cheer in the comments for the fact that Lakeside closed. Some people even assume that it was because of the service dog incident. That's not true. I've had sources confirm they closed because of this. Weirdly enough, though, the service dog wasn't the worst thing to happen to their reputation before they closed.
But we're going to begin with breaking news from Sterling Heights, where state inspectors have just shut down the carnival rides at Jeepers of Lakeside over safety concerns.
Jeepers in Lakeside Mall, regulators say inspectors uncovered a list of violations that put safety in jeopardy.
This is a popular spot in Macomb County for kids' parties, and it's right inside Lakeside Mall.
The Banana Squadron, JJ's Driving School, Python Pit, and Yak Attack were all named in a cease and desist order against Jeepers.
And we're talking about a list of multiple violations like missing parts from the equipment,
a leaky hydraulic line, unsafe lap bars, and dysfunctional operator controls.
And not having proper inspection documentation inside Jeepers. Now, we were asked to stay off the property, but take a look. You can see Jeepers has a very strong mall security presence outside.
Jeepers versus the state. The state of Michigan sent a cease and desist letter to Jeepers for not properly taking care of their rides. That is insane. But it adds up. It would explain why when you look through the window at Lakeside Mall, there are no roller coaster attractions to be seen. It looks like shit was yanked out of the floor, and it looks like a ghost town with a few arcade games sprinkled here and there.
You're putting your trust in the fact that these people are following through with what they're supposed to do, and you're putting your child in their care, and they're not taking care of what they're supposed to.
It's confirmed that Lakeside, the last Jeepers of its kind, is closed, albeit I don't know if they officially announced it. The specific details of its closure are not public whatsoever, but I've done the research, so for anyone who was thinking otherwise, they are closed. The end. I'm still left with so many questions, though.
Question 1.
This news report came out in 2019. What were you guys doing in the span of time before the pandemic? Were the kids just using the arcade machines and that's it? 2. What is Jeepers Jr.? I looked up trademark patents and I found a thing called Jeepers Jr. I thought the demographic already had little kids in it. What is the purpose? 3. If your tagline is food, fun, and a monkey, then why in this video are you putting the tagline without the monkey on screen? And 4. Can someone send me this? I don't want to pay for it, but I still want it. Lakeside Mall is getting redeveloped. Yeah, it's crazy. That sad mall with all those empty stores is finally being turned into something new, and they voted on this quite recently.
In a 5-2 vote, the council rubber-stamped the plan by Lionheart Capital, a Miami-based real estate firm, to turn the mall into Lakeside City Center, a mixed-use site with apartments, hotel and office space, dining, and retail.
Good. This mall fucking depressed me when I walked through it. But what does this mean for Jeepers? Well, duh, they're scrapping it.
$45 million. We're acting as a Wall Street bank to make sure that this project goes forward.
In a plan that they already promised to put $45 million into, probably even more money down the line, the city of Sterling Heights will basically be destroying the entire mall to build this new community, which I'm pretty sure was the plan from the get-go. It's probably why all those stores like Jeepers are just sitting there. It's kind of sad if you think about it. This mall was just collecting dust. They don't care about the actual state of it right now. They just care about what they want to do in the future, which, going off the news report, could be fully completed in 12 to 15 years.
When we talk about breaking ground here, you're not looking at that until probably at the earliest 2025, and that's no easy thing, demolishing a mall. So this is not something that's going to be done in a day. We're looking at probably 12 to 15 years.
In conclusion, Jeepers definitely left a legacy behind. Depending on who you ask, that legacy could be good or bad. There's countless people online who have fond memories of the place. It brings them back to a simpler time of nostalgia, the stress-free life of childhood. I choose to look at Jeepers through the lens of it is what it is. Poor decisions were made, a lot of the locations closed down, but a lot of people enjoyed their experience. And regardless of any controversy, a lot of the adults reminiscing about Jeepers used to be one of those kids running over to the giant gorilla statue. This is overall and always will be my favorite indoor FEC. I've always had a good experience at Jeepers, even when it was still in Great Lakes Crossing. The rides are fun, The roller coaster never fails to make me smile. The arcade games are entertaining and the staff are so kind. We brought our service dog here. They allowed him.